The Gemara in Pesachim and Samaches Amid Beis relates how Rav Sheshes would review everything that he learned every 30 days. And then at the end he would exclaim, Chadoi nafshoi, my soul, you should rejoice, you should be happy. Because Lecha Karoi, Lecha Tanoi, it's for you that I'm learning, it's for your sake that I'm studying. So it seems strange that we find no other Tana or no other Amora that uses this expression that I should be happy because I'm learning. Why was this only Rav Sheshes who used this expression? And also the expression itself is a bit difficult. Why did he limit the being joyful to his soul, to his neshama? Why didn't he say, I should be happy because I'm learning, I should be happy because I'm studying? Why only that his neshama should be happy? Why he should be happy as well? Ruchaim Vital, in his Seif, the student, the main Talmud of the great Arizal, who wrote over the teachings of the Arizal, explains this Gemara in a sefer called Shar HaGilgulim, a sefer that's dedicated to explaining the concept of Gilgul and reincarnation. So he explains that if you take the word Sheshes, the name Sheshes, and you rewrite it in a form of writing called Atbash, where you take the Aleph to become a Taf, and the Shin to become a Beis, and the Gimel becomes a Reish, and you rewrite the name Sheshes, so the Shin becomes a Beis, and the Aleph, so we have Beis, and the Aleph, and the Taf of Sheshes becomes an Aleph, it spells out Baba. He explains that Rav Sheshes was a Gilgul of Baba Ben Buta. He explains that if you look at the end of Baba Ben Buta's life, he was blinded by Hortus. The Gemara in Brachas tells us that Rav Sheshes himself was also blind. There's a lot of parallels between the two lives, because he explains that he was a Gilgul reincarnation of Baba Ben Buta. And he knew, because Baba Ben Buta was such a great person, such a great personality, that at the time of the resurrection, since he was only sent there to fix up just a little bit, so at the time of the resurrection by Tchias HaMesim, the soul that is now in the body of Rav Sheshes will return to the body of Baba Ben Buta. And therefore he's told himself, right now, I'm learning, I'm enjoying it right now, but ultimately, in Olam Haba, by the ultimate reward, what will happen is only my soul will benefit from it, for my body won't be resurrected. And therefore he says, Chadoi nafshoi, my soul, you should rejoice, because my body won't rejoice, because my body won't benefit from the learning that I'm doing now. It will only be the soul. And that's why we find this expression only by Rav Sheshes. Over a millennium later, on January 17th, 1947, a little boy, H.A. Widgerantne, I didn't make up the name, was born in a village, and I didn't make this up either, Ugal Kaltota, Ceylon, a little island village in the Indian Ocean. He was born, this little boy, and this child was a little different than his siblings. All the other siblings had light skin. He had darker skin. And he looked very similar to his uncle, his father's brother. But the most striking feature of this little boy was that his right side was born deformed. His arm was deformed, and it looked like one of his ribs were missing on the right side. When this child reached the age of between 2 and 2.5, he would walk around the house muttering to himself. And his mother noticed this and was curious, so she eavesdropped on this little boy. And this little boy was telling himself that the reason why his hand looks like this, why his right side looks like this, because in a previous lifetime, he had murdered someone with his hand, with this right side. And therefore, he was born in this life looking like that. She wasn't so thrilled, I could imagine. And she decided to investigate. So she turns to her husband and asks because the child not only just related that statement, he went on to mention different facts pertaining to a case which she had never heard of, a murder that she never knew was committed. So she asked her husband, does he know anything about it? And her husband told her that he confirmed everything that the little boy said. For in fact, his brother, the little boy's uncle, whom the little boy resembled, was executed 19 years prior, in 1928, for a murder that he had committed. The concept of Gilgul, of reincarnation, is not a uniquely Jewish idea. Other religions, other cultures believe in it as well. Hinduism, for example, places a great emphasis on reincarnation. They believe that the only way a person could ever achieve complete perfection, ultimate perfection, is if the body or the soul comes back into this world again. Pythagoras, the great Greek philosopher and mathematician, would refuse to eat meat because he believed that a soul could be reincarnated in an animal, and eat an animal, the eat of such an animal would be tantamount to murder. Socrates and Plato ardently defended this notion of reincarnation against the philosophical onslaught of Aristotle. In fact, in Judaism, it wasn't at first accepted by everyone. It wasn't just an idea that now it seems to be more widespread, but initially it wasn't so widespread. There's no mention of it in the Torah. Nowhere do we find any explicit mention in all of Tanakh or in the Gemara. There's nothing explicit, just veiled hints. Just to mention two of them. It says in Vizos HaBracha, when Moshe is giving a bracha to all the different shvatim, to all the different tribes, so when he reaches Reuven, he says, Yechi Reuven v'al yamos. Reuven should live and he shouldn't die. Which seems strange. What does that mean, that he should live and not die? If he's living, he's not going to die, obviously. And if he's not going to die, then he's going to live. What's this double expression? So Targum Onkelos explains over there, Yechi Reuven b'chaye alma, that he should live in the world, in the next world, and not need to die a second death. That means he should not need to come back into this world a second time to fix up, to be masakin, the sin of switching the beds, of switching Yaakov's beds. In Koheles and Ecclesiastes it says, Shabeach ani asamesim shekvar mesu. I praise those people who died who are already dead. Obviously, if a person is no longer alive, then he's deceased. What does that mean? Mesim asher kvar mesu. What's the pasuk adding? So again, there as well they explain that it means the mesim that died and don't need to come back into this world a second time. That they're done, now they're enjoying their reward in the world to come, in the Olam HaNeshamas. And therefore, because of that, because there is no explicit reference to it, some rejected the idea of reincarnation, the possibility of reincarnation entirely. It's well known that Rav Sadia Gaon, in his Sefer Amunah V'Deos, calls such a belief Shigayom V'Irvav. It's an insanity. One can't believe in that. It doesn't make any sense. However, with the writings of the Arizal and the proliferation of Kabbalah, this idea became much more widespread and much more accepted. In fact, there's a tshuva written in the 1500s to the Maral Bach. The Maral Bach was the son of the Iyun Yaakov, who had escaped from the Inquisition, ultimately became the chief rabbi in Yerushalayim. He was the strongest opponent to the reintroducing of the smicha, Maribe Rav's reintroducing of smicha, and ultimately he was one of the major reasons why it failed. And he was asked in the tshuva, in the source 7, he was asked, do I have to believe in Gilgul? Is it something that's necessary for me to believe in? So he says, and regarding the third question you asked, is it something that's necessary to believe in? Let's leave that part out. Due to my sins, I have not merited this chachma, this wisdom. A person can't investigate by himself. Its name is exactly what it is. Kabbalah means a tradition. It's passed on by tradition. You have to learn it from someone who learned it from someone else all the way back. But then the tshuva I cut out a little bit. But then at the end, in the middle, the next paragraph, he says, there's a group of people who believe in this. Torah, this is one of the foundations of the Torah. To answer up the question, why do good people suffer? And we're all obliged to listen to the words of those who say that we have to believe in it. This is what the Maral Bach says, that we have to believe in it without any questions. That's the Maral Bach. And therefore, when the Rashash tries to disprove the whole concept of Gilgul from the Gemara in Bab Mitzvah, which says, Baruch atah b'voecha, Baruch atah b'tzosecha, blessed are you when you come, and blessed are you when you leave. It says, the Gemara explains, what does that mean? Blessed are you when you come, and blessed are you when you leave. Just as you come into this world without any sin, so too you should leave without any sin. The Rishash says, how does if we believe in the concept of Gilgul, how could a person come into this world without any sin? It can't be. Most reasons why a person's sent back is because of Gilgul, because he sinned. So what does it mean a person comes back into this world without any sin? Mikan stira k'sas l'bali das ha-Gilgul. Here's a question on those who believe, who subscribe to the belief of Gilgul. So in that, Chaim Kanievsky in his Sefer Derech Sicha, and Parshas Kisavo says, Mistaver Shalom HaRashash Kasav. The Rashash probably never wrote this. He says, he answers the Gemara how you could understand it, how you could fit it in with Gilgul. And he says, you could always disagree with the Rashash and argue. He's not a Rishon. You could disagree and argue within Torah. He didn't say things that were silly. And that's because once the Ralbach, with the proliferation of Kabbalah, so this idea of reincarnation became widespread and accepted. However, what is this all? What is Gilgul? How does it work? How do I know if I'm a reincarnation? How does this affect me? Like, what am I supposed to do with this knowledge that there is such a concept of Gilgul? So just start from the beginning and try to give a framework a little bit to the idea of what Gilgul is. We are souls. We were created as souls, and we were living very fine. We were functioning very fine in a spiritual world as souls. But in order to function in this world, we were given a body. We were given a physical body in order to function. And this is, if you just take an idea, like a mashal to this idea would be if someone wants to go swimming in the coral reef. So he can't just go down swimming, just decide, put on a bathing suit and dive into the water. He has to put on scuba gear. He puts on scuba gear if he wants to swim with sharks, so he puts on diving gear, and he goes down and swims. And if he wants to communicate, he has a radio with him. He needs to put on special gear in order to do this. And once he finishes diving, then he comes up, and then he comes onto the land and takes off his diving gear. So this is the idea of the soul. The soul, in order to function in this world, is given this body, and then that's why there's a custom. When someone passes on, they tear the clothing. It's in order to say that the person himself, that personality, is still here. He wasn't affected. It's just the person's clothing was affected. But that person is right now in a spiritual world, enjoying the spiritual reward for what he's done. Now, at the time that a person's born, so the soul becomes intricately woven with the body, and it stays like that until after 120. And even then the soul will separate from the body. But even then, they say that the Svarim say that this soul doesn't separate entirely. Some of the life force remains. And they say even scientifically, for a little bit after a person passes on, so the nails continue to grow for a little bit of time. Souls continue to multiply for a period of time because there's still some sort of life force, some part of the neshama that remains attached to the body. And this life force is, when we speak of the idea of necromancy, to the diviners, seances, what they're doing is really manipulating this life force, which is still attached to the body, and using it to create whatever magic that they want to create. So after a person passes on, so the part of the soul that is separated from the body, so that will go on to a spiritual world. So if the soul developed itself, so it will go into Gan Eden, Olam HaNeshamas, where it will continue to be enhanced. If it had blemished itself, it will go to purgatory, where it will be cleansed up, and then go to join the world of Olam HaNeshamas, where it will benefit the reward for all the work that it had done in this world. But sometimes it doesn't work out just like that. Sometimes the soul has to be sent back into this world. And the Svarim, the Abarbanel, and the Kisvei in Shar al-Gulgulim gives different reasons why that may be necessary. The first reason, this is the most well-known reason, if a person committed a sin, that he can't be fixed up in Gehenna, so he will be sent back into this world in order to affect the tikkun. And this is the truth. This is a tremendous chesed from Hashem. because the Marami Pano, an Italian Kabbalist he was the one who printed the writings of the Ramak, or Moshe Cordovero. So he writes that usually when a person is sent back because he committed such a grave sin, a sin that's subject to karas, subject to excision. So in order that Hashem not allow him, give him the possibility of entering Olam Haba, so in order to give him that possibility, so he's sent back, given a second chance to fix up what he's done, and then he'll be able to go into Olam Haba. And this is a tremendous chesed that he'll be able to benefit from the next world. If you take the gematria of Gilgal, Gimel Lamed, Vav, Gimel Lamed, so yeah, it's the gematria of 72. I did it a few times. Now the gematria of Chesed also is 72. Because the whole concept of Gilgal is a tremendous chesed, that Hashem gives us a second opportunity, a third or fourth opportunity to be able to enter the world to come and enjoy the spiritual reward. Even sometimes, let's say for a smaller sin, depending on how great the person is, for a smaller sin, a person may be sent back in. In the introduction to Shara Gilgulim, the Reb Chaim Vital describes how he was once walking with his Rebbe, the great Arizal, and his Rebbe began to enumerate all his different past lifetimes. And he went on to tell him about this, that, all the different lifetimes, why he was sent back for the different lifetimes. And then he told him, the reason why you were sent back in this lifetime was because you did not have enough emunah, enough faith in the teachings of the Zohar. And so therefore he explained, in order to be masak in this, he would have to learn the Kabbalah without asking any questions for a long period of time, and only then ask questions. But that's the first reason why a person may be sent back into this world. And if that happens, so a person has up to 4 times to fix up what he's done. Meaning, if a person is sent back, a person, let's say, eats something that's forbidden, that's subject, or he does a grave sin that's subject to karas, excision, in his lifetime. So he gets sent back, he messes up again. Then he has 2 more times, a 3rd and 4th time, in order to fix up what he's done. And this is hinted to in the pasuk. It said, "Pokein avon, avos al banim, al bnei banim, al shileishim ve'al ribeim." That Hashem remembers the sins of fathers and sons up to 3-4 times, 3-4 generations. But you could read it, father and son being the neshama is being nisgalgal up to 3-4 times. Hashem remembers that first sin up to 3-4 times. It says a pasuk in Amos, "Ma Hashem ko amar Hashem al shlosha posha Yisrael v'al arba lo ashivenu." 3 times if you sin, but on the 4th time, then you're not going to be sent back. The person has up to 4 times. However, if a person's working on himself, and even if he hasn't effected a complete tikkun, he'll be given many more chances, as far as I'm saying. So only 3-4 times is only if a person hasn't accomplished anything each time. Included in this category, but an extreme manifestation of this, is there's souls that are sent back because they can, but not as a human being, because they can't achieve a complete rectification as human beings, but they're sent back actually as animals or even rocks. There's a pasuk in Bereshis that hints to this idea as well. It says, "Nase adam b'talmenu kidmusenu v'yirdegu b'degas hayam." So simply means, and they will subjugate the fish of the sea, v'of hashemayim, and the birds in heaven, u'ba'behim v'chol ha'aretz v'chol ha'remes. He'll subjugate all the different animals and the earth. However, you could read it v'yirdegu, and they will descend, because again, this is hinting to this notion, this concept of this possibility. There's the Reb Chaim Vital explains a pasuk based on this. It says, "Vayamas liboy bakirba v'uva oven." It says David HaMelech was running away from Shaul. So David HaMelech ran to Novel and said Novel was it was in the middle of making a big party. He had sheared his wool. It was a time of celebration. So he went and David HaMelech went and asked him for food. Novel curses David HaMelech. And afterwards the pasuk says, "Vayamas libo bakirba v'uva oven." And his heart died in his midst, and he was like a stoner. He was a stone. What does this mean? He was a stone, and it became like a stone. And so he explains who was Novel? Let's take a look at his history. This is not the first time we know Novel. We know Novel in many different forms. To go back all the way to the beginning of by Yaakov Avinu, there is a character Lavan. Lavan, the letters of Lavan, which are also the letters of Novel is Lamed Beis Nun. He was Lavan, he was Bilam, and he was Novel. He began his life, his first time he was sent back was in Lavan. Clearly he messed up. Then he was sent back, he was given another chance as Bilam. So who was Bilam? Bilam, we know, was a sorcerer, he's a snake charmer, he tried to curse the Jewish people with his mouth. So therefore he was sent back, this time as a rock. If he used his mouth inappropriately, if he used it for the wrong things to try to curse the Jewish nation, so therefore he's sent back as a rock, as a domim. A domim is something that can't speak. So he's sent back as a rock. Now he achieved whatever he needed to, he accomplished whatever he needed to accomplish as a rock, and now he's given a chance to fix up finally the last step to be able to enter the world. So he's sent back as Novel. So he comes as Novel, and then what does he do? David asks him for some food, and he curses David. He messed up with his mouth again. Vayamas libo bekirbo, his heart died inside of him. V'huhayalavim, because he remembered who he was. That he was sent back as a stone because he had sinned with his mouth, and now he was already being misaken what he did. But what happened? He messed up, and now he's going to have to start again, all over again. So therefore, he was Vayamas libo bekirbo. Now the Svarim say in this situation, usually a person, in most instances, a person forgets what his past lives. But when a person is sent back as an animal, as a stone, then he remembers, and therefore it's tremendously painful because he used to be the sole owner, so to speak, he used to be the only one in charge of himself, and now he's secondary to the soul of an animal in the body of a beast. And this is tremendously painful, could be, they say, worse than the pain of purgatory itself. That's the first reason why a person may be sent back into this world. The second reason a person may be sent is in order to, not because he did anything wrong, but in order to enhance himself, to become a bigger person, to get a higher level in the world to come. We find that Ramchal, there's a Chidah, it's brought out in other letters from the Ramchal, that he was buried next to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the great Tana who lived 120 years. The last 80 years of his life he was spent in growing and learning. The first 40 years were not. Ramchal lived 40 years. He lived 40 years, and he said, the reason why I was sent back to this world and only lived 40 years, because I was going to enhance the soul of Rabbi Akiva, who only began learning at the age of 40. And that's the second reason why a person may be sent back into this world. The third reason is not because why a soul that the Shar says is not because the soul did anything wrong. He reached the highest level of perfection. However, the world needs him, or someone needs him, and therefore he's sent back, not for himself but for other people. Rav Chaim Vital writes that in his Akdama that the reason why the Arizal told him the reason why the Arizal was sent back into this world was in order to help Rav Chaim Vital achieve his tikkun, and therefore he was sent back. Again, nothing he did, clearly he was a great person, but because to help Rav Chaim Vital. And in this situation, then if someone's sent back for someone else, then it's guaranteed that he will never sin. And these are the three reasons why a person may be sent back in this world as a Gilgul. So this is the background to Gilgul. The question is, how does Gilgul affect me? So I am a Gilgul, I'm not a Gilgul, I don't know, but what happens, does it affect my lifetime right now? And the Gemara Nida tells us that when a person comes into this world, he's born. So the way the Maharal explains the Gemara, the shock of the spiritual soul being attached to the physical body is such a shock that he forgets everything, all his previous lifetimes, anything that he learned in the mother's womb, he forgets everything. Yet still the Svarim say that the previous lifetime do have an impact on the current one. There's a Sefer Nishmas Chaim. The Sefer Nishmas Chaim was written by a famous Marano, Reb Menashe ben Yisrael, a relative of the Abarbanel, who fled from Portugal to Amsterdam at a young age. He worked with Cromwell to establish the English community. He was a very influential person, Reb Menashe ben Yisrael. He wrote a sefer called Nishmas Chaim. The sefer Nishmas Chaim is basically a sefer dedicated to explaining, like it says, Nishma, to explain the Neshama, the concept of Neshama. And there he has a section on Gilgulim. So he writes over there what I found so fascinating. He says, sometimes you'll go and you'll meet a person who just seems to have so much experience, even though he's so young. He could be 20 years old. The example he gives, you have a 20-year-old that's way more experienced, seems to know like all the right answers, more than someone who's much older. Someone, in his example, is 20 and 60. So he says, how is it possible to have a 20-year-old being so much more in tune with the world than someone who's 60, who should have so much more experience? So he explains over there by quoting Socrates. He says that sometimes a person has so much experience, even though he's so young, is because he's not only 20 years old. This is not his first time around. He could be 90, he could be 300 years old. Who knows how old he is? But he is not the first time coming into the world. And therefore, all this experience is built from prior lifetimes. And sometimes a person can have this feeling like he's reviewing something. He's seen it before. Could be he has. Many years ago, many lifetimes ago. Who knows? That's one.
It's a colloquial déjà vu.
Yeah, it could, right. Sometimes it could really be. I mean, yeah. Well, it's not good, but yeah, it definitely could be like that. There's Mozart used to say. Mozart was obviously this most brilliant composer. So Mozart, I just remember a story about Mozart. He was just coming to the king's palace, I guess, or his king's. He was meeting the king or emperor, the royal official over there, and so the royal musician decided to play a piece for him. So he played a piece on the piano. Mozart listened. So Mozart, okay, I guess he said thank you. I don't know. So then Mozart sat down by the piano and played the exact same piece after hearing it one time, and then improved it on the spot. This was the genius of Mozart, one of the most brilliant composers of all time. So he used to say over that his extraordinary musical talents was not a result of his inexplicable genius, but of musical gifts developed over many centuries, over many lifetimes. He's been a musician in many lives, so this was no big deal for him. Habits could be a result of a previous lifetime. The Arizal writes that if a person comes back into this world in order to fix up a sin, so he'll be more prone to that sin. Let's say a person was sent back because he couldn't get up in the morning, so he used to wake up midday. So it will be difficult for him to wake up in the morning. Could be something like that. If a person was coming back just to enhance himself, so then he'll be less inclined to sin. Habits, whatever were his actions in his previous lifetime, will affect his habits. Phobias, they say, could be a result of a previous lifetime as well. If a person's inexplicably afraid of something, it could be because that affected him in a previous lifetime. There's a person, Dr. Ian Stevenson. So he was one of the people who spent a considerable amount of time dedicated to trying to investigating the possibility of reincarnation. So he has many case studies. So in one case study, he describes a girl who had a terrible phobia of darkness. And this girl, I mean, it was like beyond what was normal. At the age 15, she was still petrified of the dark. One time the electricity went out in her house, and she came crying to her mother. Like, it just wasn't, it was beyond what a normal phobia. And the first words that this little girl said at the age of, I assume 2, was Ramazan killed. And then a little bit later, Ramazan killed me. And then, so after doing the requisite research, it emerged that this girl who at age 2 claimed that Ramazan killed, she was apparently, and this was what he claimed, that she was murdered in her previous lifetime in her barn in the dark of night. So she had this tremendous phobia of darkness. It could be connected. Even small things, such as an inclination to certain cultures. Birthmarks, even, could be a result of a previous lifetime. There is an Indian boy who claimed to remember being Maharam, no relation to the Akron, but he claimed to be in his previous lifetime Maharam, who was killed by a shotgun blast. This little boy had birthmarks all around his chest area that could possibly correspond to a shotgun blast. They got the records of the autopsy of the man who was Maharam. And they found out that the birthmarks, which recorded the man's chest wounds, and these chest wounds corresponded directly with this boy's birthmarks. One of the things that I think that trouble most people with the whole concept of Gilgul reincarnation is what's going to be by Tchiyas HaMesim? What's going to be by the resurrection? Who am I going to be? Which body? Am I going to be this body? Am I going to be a previous version of me? A later version of me? Who am I? And the truth, you could really just ask like who cares? When we get there, we'll worry about it then. But I think it's a deep question, because I think what the question really is asking is, who am I? It's not just which body, but who am I? Am I really my first lifetime? Because just the question's really like this. A person gets sent into the world, he messes up, he's going there, he's being sent back to enhance what he had done in his previous, to enhance himself. So he's sent back 2-3 times, and then he's perfected himself, he reached the ultimate level, and now after 120 he passes on. It's the time of Tchiyas HaMesim. So he has 4 options, which one will it be? So I think the question really is who am I? Am I that first person? And everything that I did afterwards was just to be mistaken what I had done in my first life? Or am I the product of all my lifetimes, and therefore I'm the last person? So the question really is who am I? Not just which body. I think it's a much deeper question. And so again, the Sefer Nishmas Chaim, the Sefer written by Rabbi Menashe ben Yisrael, addresses this. And he does so by quoting Abarbanel. The Abarbanel writes that the body that a person will be resurrected in, that will be the person's first body. That means, let's say he's sent back 4 times, version 1 of him will be the one that will be resurrected. However, the Nishmas Chaim asks, it doesn't seem right. A person, let's say, messes up terribly in his first lifetime, and he fixes up in his second lifetime. So who really caused this soul to achieve his tikkun? The second lifetime. Yet the one who will be rewarded for is the first body says it doesn't seem fair. And I would add just another question. The Shla writes that Adam, if you take the letters of Adam, Aleph, Daled, Mem, it's Adam Arishon, David HaMelech, and then Mashiach. The Shla writes that Adam, who gave 70 years, was really reincarnated in David HaMelech and ultimately became Mashiach. So I assume that Adam Arishon will be there by Tchiyas HaMesim, David HaMelech will certainly be there, and Mashiach will be there. So if it's only the first body, so how will it all work out? How do you have 3 people coming back? So the way the Svarim is based on the Chidah and Nishmas Chaim explain that the soul is not this one-dimensional creature, a single unit, so to say. But rather a soul is a collection of different sparks, of spiritual sparks, of nitzotzes, which is bound together by this ethereal garment called tselem. So each time a person does a mitzvah, so he elevates a spark. He elevates many sparks. And throughout a person's life, he elevates many, many sparks. When a person dies, then those sparks that he elevates, those go to where they're supposed to be. They're sent back to those that weren't elevated. They get sent back a second time to another person. So it comes out that a person is never exactly the same person as he was in a previous Gilgul, because in his previous lifetime he elevated certain sparks, so those sparks are no longer there. So it's new sparks, different sparks, or sparks that weren't elevated, so that neshama, or those sparks, go into the next body. And after, when he finally fixes up and is resurrected, so each body will come back and get those sparks that he elevated. So it's not the first body, it's not the last body, but it's each and every person, whether you like it or not, it will be sent back into this world and will be there at the time of the resurrection. That's just just making it simple. Just to conclude, why is it important to know about this? Is it really important? Does it make a difference if I am a new version of me, a recycled version of me? This is my first time, my 7th time. Does it really make any difference at all? And the Rishonim, the Ramban in the Sefer Shara Gamul, the Rabbeinu Bechai in Karach Kemach, and also in his Pirush Chumash, and way before him in the Tanaim already, in the Sefer HaBoyer, which is a Kabbalistic Sefer written by Reb Nechunya ben Akana, which predates the Zohar. They all explain that, they all write that the concept, once a person knows the concept of Gilgul, that it's impossible to ask the question of why do bad good people suffer? It's impossible, because a person may be phenomenal in this world, do everything right in this lifetime, but who knows what happened in a previous lifetime. So once with this knowledge, a person can't ask the question. But I think it's more than just an answer. This knowledge is more than just an answer to this philosophical question. But I think it's an idea that should inspire us to live differently. The awareness of Gilgul should make us realize that although people seem to get away with things, people steal and cheat and yet they benefit, we have many times hit and runs, and they're never caught. But still everything is taken into account. And even though someone seems to have benefited from actions that were not so good in this lifetime, who knows what will happen in the next lifetime. The Zohar calls the Parshas Mishpatim Sifra de Gulgula, the Sefer of Reincarnation. What is Parshas Mishpatim, which is the parsha which deals with monetary laws, have to do with Gilgul? What's the connection? So I think this is the connection, that if a person steals in this world, so then he may not have to pay back in this lifetime, but maybe the next lifetime, or 3 lifetimes from now. If someone sins by taking money or damaging someone else, he will come back in this world and return it. Everyone gets what they're supposed to get. And this realization should cause us to live differently. We should act differently to other people because someone stole from me. Alright, so I won't get it back this lifetime. I'll get it back the next one. Either way, but everything will be worked out. And even once a person does come back as a Gilgul, he's not given this, we see that he's not given a fresh start, but a second chance. However, everything he's done until this point still affects him. We saw from the Arizal that if a person's not careful regarding mitzvahs, he'll be, in his previous lifetime, it will be much harder for him to do so in this lifetime. We saw from the Gemara with Rav Sheshes that a physical defect in a previous lifetime could affect this lifetime. Baba Ben Buta was blinded in the last life. In this life, Rav Sheshes was born blind. We saw a sin in the previous lifetime could create a deformity in this lifetime, like that little boy. Or even worse, a person may be given a second chance only after he comes back as an animal, as a plant, or as a rock. The truth is, the awareness of Gilgul should cause us to live differently and push us harder. Like, if you take a look just at the source sheets, the Mishnah Berurah says the reason why we read Maftir Yonah on Yom Kippur is because Maftir Yonah teaches us she'ein yachol levrach me'an Hashem yisbarach. You can't run away from Hashem. So the Sharasian says, what does that mean? He says, Ki ha'adam choshev kama pa'amim liyayish. A person many times during his lifetime says, I'm ready to give up. I messed up so terribly. There's no point in me pushing myself at all. She'ein yachol l'sakim b'shem ofen. I can't fix up what I've done. And therefore he'll continue to act the way he has acted until now. And he says that if Hashem wants him to die, so he'll die, but there's nothing I can do about it. But it's a big mistake, he writes. Anything that Hashem wants him to be masakin, wants him to fix up before Mashiach comes, he will fix up. He'll come 1 time more, 2 times more, many times more l'olam hazeh. And he'll be forced to be masakin what he has to be masakin. What's the purpose? If you know that you're going to anyways have to fix up what you're supposed to fix up, so why go through the process many times? Just do it right. Why should he be forced to go again and again through the entire process? Just do it right. That's the message. That's also another thing that Gilgul should push us to do. That we shouldn't give up. We should always. We're going to be masakinit. The question is just when. Is it going to be this lifetime or the next lifetime? So let's take the message of Gilgul to heart and achieve what the Ibn Ezra writes is the esoteric meaning of the pasuk Uladav Kabo, that only after all our Gilgulim that will merit to become davik to Hashem, to become attached to Hashem in Olam Haba, in Olam HaNeshamas. Thank you.